All right, I hit the button.
I always record it to my computer.
Yeah. I don't even have one of those. All I got's an iPad now. That's the problem. I'm like,
oh, really? You went straight
I'm like anti-computer these days. I
needed my computer.
I hate computers. I want to go with a Nokia flip phone and an iPad, but that's just me talking shit because I'll never have the courage to really do it. So,
well, if you're gonna do shit out of your office, you need a fucking computer.
I know, man. I know. I really thought this iPad had all the functions, but it's just because I have such a knowledge deficit with technology. When I got it back here, I didn't realize like it would function different than an iMac. And now I just refuse to go spend a couple more grand on an iMac. I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to figure out how to make this thing work.
I got you.
Anyway, all right, guys. First of all, thanks for watching. I got the OG, Joe Ken. You know, this guy, I shouldn't have to introduce him, for crying out loud. If you're in this group and you're watching this and you don't know who this is, I should revoke your membership. He, in my opinion, is the OG of OGs. And before we get started talking about this, I want to highlight Coach Ken's impact in my life. I was just kind of, I was definitely not kind of, I was a young knucklehead guy wanting to learn about strength and conditioning. And I had been dissecting Russian manuals and all this other stuff everybody told me to read, and super training and all these things. And I'm going to be honest with you, outside of some things I pulled from Tudor Bumpa's stuff, I didn't know how to program to save my life. And I mean, this is 20 years ago. And I stumble onto the tier system. And the way that Coach Ken explained it, it made sense to me. And it intrigued me because it really violated everything I had been learning about strength and conditioning. So I was like, I like this guy already. And I went all in. And that book, the Coach's Playbook, it literally taught me how to program for team athletes. I've given that book to one of my guys because we're arranging some contracts with high school teams, and it's going to be his manual of how he's going to learn. But outside of like the material that he provides and the information, I want to talk about the value of having somebody like this in your corner. Okay. There have been a lot of times in my life where I've been uncertain about the direction I'm going. And I know if I reach out to him, I'm going to get it straight. And his influence in my life as a mentor has given me a level of confidence that I did not have the first 10 years that I was in this business. I say all that not to blow his head up or gas him up. I tell him these things, you know, all the time because he's that important to me. I say that to you guys because there's somebody in your life, a coach on your staff or a young coach you're communicating with, and you've got an opportunity to help that guy go from good to great. So I wanted to start that off, Coach, and thank you for your time. It means a lot to me, as always.
Yeah, Andy, and again, it's been really fun watching you accept those challenges because you do have value outside of the mentorship and tribe that you have established for yourself and what you've accomplished down in the Huntsville area with the amount of top talented people who have moved on to colleges. And again, it's just interesting how people stories kind of match in some ways, but then are split in others. And it's just a form. And, you know, I consider you a friend, and I don't use that word lightly, but I also consider you a high impact colleague because you have a lot to offer. And the things that you're doing are way different than things that I've experienced. We just talked about it. Our path to where we are is the exact opposite. College scholarship, get a master's, go into the big time. You hit the high school, learn how to sell at a local gym and build shit from nothing. So it's cool because that's my dad, you know, self-made straight out the box and OG street guy. And there's a lot to be said about that. And I think that watching my son now kind of more on that going through the trade, I consider how you've accomplished your task as a business owner as going to trade school. You know, you had to learn, you know, the junior college route without going to junior college.
Absolutely.
To be said about that. And, you know, I always feel like there's certain things you just can't describe. Like people say, well, why are you able to do that, man? It's a gift, right? And well, describe that. You can't describe gifts. Like, it's not my fault that I was born and raised by a street dad that understood the game, right? Now, he protected me from it, so I don't know it as well, but I understand that hustle and I understand what it takes to make something from nothing. And that's the one thing that I will say right off the bat, having experienced my relationship with you and then having experienced the relationship several times as a private sector coach, is I have the utmost respect for anyone in the private sector industry who can put their name on their own storefront. Like I sublet because I knew I needed to be fluid and I didn't know how long this deal was going to go. But if you've invested in a storefront, a brick and mortar storefront, and your name's on the building and you're successful and it's become sustainable, you should walk around with your chest pumped and your head held higher than any other person that you see that you think's done something special, because you've done something that most people cannot do. Run a successful private business, regardless of what it is, whether it's a pizza place, a hot dog stand, a library, a non-affiliated franchise, and your name's on it. That I learned a long time ago, 10 years ago, when I tried to do it and I've attempted to do it as a sublet. I was like, oh my God, imagine and again, I was going to buy a building. I was going to buy out. And it was like, yeah, this is a big investment. I don't know how long this might work. I'm going to go this route and build a different way. So for everybody who's in the private sector that'll hear this message, just know I will utmost respect for all of you.
Yeah. And I've always loved that. Our conversations about that and like the respect you have for the guys that are, fighting that battle in the private market has always been really valuable to me, because hearing somebody like you that has done so much say, yo, that shit is hard. That is a challenge. That was humbling for me. Like, that's a big deal, and it should be a big confidence boost for everybody watching this too. I want to highlight something really quick. And I think it's the two things that are required to build a business. You mentioned kind of like the mentality, right? The hustle mentality. I strongly believe you need something inside of you like that. And I don't know how to explain that. I don't know how to point it out to people, but there's got to be this kind of thing inside of you that is like pulling you towards the thing that you want, the facility or the gym. That's big. And then the other part of it is you've got to learn how to run a business. I was able to build a business, make some money, but I didn't have the freedom I have now. I didn't have the money I have now. I didn't have the team and staff I have now. All that came after I learned how to build a business. And if you can learn strength and conditioning, okay, it's a principle-based industry. You can learn business too, and it's principle-based. And, both of us are kind of, we're deep into our careers here. And one of the things I talk a lot about is like, what's the end game? Like, where are you going? And if you know business, there are multiple businesses that you can get involved in and be a real value to. So everybody that's watching this, like, understand, like, spend your time learning your X's and O's of strength and conditioning, but you got to learn X's and O's of business too. And if you match that up with hustle, things go a long way. They go a long way. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when you first talk about it, the intrinsically motivated person is usually going to win. And what do I mean by that is most people understand. Here's what I've learned. If you chase the money's not going to come. I believe that truthfully. And I say that because it's like in college, chasing the next job. And it's the same thing. If you're chasing the next job, you're probably chasing the money, right? Or the fame.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, until you understand, you'll get those if you commit to what's going to be important in the now. And that's why I tell people, the best job you have is the best job in the world is the one you have. Because if you don't commit to that specific present, your goals and aspirations will never be achieved. If you're worried about the next job, you're not putting the time and effort into this job.
Yes.
So therefore, you never reach the mythical 100%. Another coach speak, oh, you got to give 110%. You can't. 100% is a perfect score.
Oh, you got.
If it's 110%, then you've elevated your game to a new 100%.
Yeah.
And again, we use that in maxes, right? Hey, the guy improved 5%, but we don't say he's now training off 105%. We say he's training off a new 100%.
New max, yeah. Yeah.
I think the intrinsically motivated person who understands the present and then uses the past experiences to help build that present. And then the future, I think you should have a future state, right? Like you should have goals and long-term goals and aspirations, because that's important. My goals and aspirations will always be an NFL strength coach for the Carolina Panthers. I literally achieved my dream job. And would I have loved to have stayed there till I retired? Of course, who wouldn't, right? But all dreams come to an end. You establish new dreams. And at the end of the day, for 9 years, I actually had my dream job. Did I, because of my quest for the challenge to get there? No, it's a lot of things happen, right? You just put yourself in a position where, hey, I got fortunate. The timing was perfect. The people were interested and it all worked out. I don't know if I keep saying, if I wasn't working at Prolific Park and was still at Louisville, I don't know if I get the job. So
Yeah.
it's, you can't, life throws curveball. I always say you got to be a curveball hitter. As much as people want to hit fastballs, we'd all love to hit fastballs, right? You like to wake up today and you already know without trying that your gym's going to make 10 grand a day, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
tally that up or something like that. But then there's going to be a day when you walk in and they're like, hey man, you made zero. and you can't, and again, it's like you gotta ride a steady wave, right? You can't go crashing up and down. You got to learn to ride these waves and have a constant head on your shoulders where the highs can't be too high, the lows can't be too low, because it's always going to even out if you're doing things correctly. It's just the way it is. It's no different, like you said, writing a strength program. People say, oh, deload to reload, right?
Huh?
Why? Because it's a wave. How does most people write linear progressions? On a wave. But at some point,
Yep.
go back down and you got to build again. So I think everything is a learning experience, but it all comes back to the want to that you have inside, and how you and as much as a lot of it too is the environment you were brought up in. And I'm not saying everything's got to be the lily white perfect family situation, because as we all know now, the family dynamics are so skewed in this day and age that that's a whole different understanding within itself, is learning the understanding of where someone comes from to get a better feeling of how to approach this situation. But the truth is, regardless of the situation, the ones who are successful wanted to get out of that situation and be better than what they were. And I think that's what people, everybody, it's like this, like we talk about with my kids in coaching, right? My wife chose to follow me. My kids didn't. But how they respond to that situation is going to turn them into who they are. And that's where I think a lot of, when you hear some of the stories, and I'm sure in your area, you know exactly what I'm talking about the diverse family situation that most people come from. But then as many kids as you've trained, I guarantee you, regardless of that family situation, every one of those kids who went to Alabama or Auburn, regardless of their talent, wanted to get out.
Yeah.
Regardless, whether they had living with Grams, living with mom, living with cousins, living with friends, or had a mom and dad or a two parent household. It didn't matter. If you want to get out, you're going to find a way to get out. And if you don't, you don't. So that's the things that people have to remember when they're on this come up, is look at the here and now, where you are, where you want to go, and how is attacking today going to help you take the steps necessary to get to your goals. Because if you wake up every morning saying, well, I got to do this to get to that, you're not going to get there. Because if you're in a people-based business, people know if you're giving 100.
Yeah, man, they do. They do. Let me ask you this. What do you think?
Sorry about that.
No, you're all right. What do you think you have done, or what would you advise another strength coach to do to kind of keep at bay that mentality of what's next? Like, we can say, like, be present, be focused. This is the right job. Like, I really think people trick themselves out of really good opportunities for themselves with this kind of future pacing mindset. And really, like all social media, everything is constantly pumping it into people's heads that you can't be satisfied. Like that's not like you're not the man if you're satisfied. So people are always looking forward. And I see people, in my opinion, making mistakes that really aren't congruent with who they are because they always feel like they need to go to the next level and chase something else. Would you have any advice for somebody to stay present and not be so locked in on what's next?
Yeah, don't worry about anybody else. They're not helping you.
Yep.
You control your controllable. Your controllable is, again, I would say that when I first met you, Body Creations was a spot that, oh man, that's cool. This guy runs his own spot. Let's see what's
Yep.
up. To now, it's like, damn, man. And I don't think you changed the model. You just continued to put the time and effort in. It grew. You became more accredited, so to speak, or got street cred by the kids who came in and where they wound up. And
Yep.
now you can honestly say you've worked with 8-year-olds to all pros.
Yep.
Because you've had guys come in there who started with you from the get and they made the NFL and they've been in the playoffs and stuff like that. I will tell you this. I never read the book because I lived it at Boise State, but there is value in Frosty Westerling's Make the Big Time Where You Are. If you have
Okay.
that mentality,
I've never read that.
yeah,
Make the Big Time Where I've never read that one.
and I remember when Adam Fight brought it up to me and I was like, Fight, I'll never read that. And I'm not disrespecting the book because I lived that at Boise State.
Yeah.
I outwardly said out loud to our athletic trainer that I'm going to make Boise State the next Nebraska. And he kind of looked at me crazy because that's when I had the epiphany of stop applying for all these other jobs because you're not giving the effort you need. Stop doing things that are affecting what you can accomplish here. If this is why you chose to be here, you accepted the job here. You didn't have to accept the promotion. You could have left. So from that point on, it was interesting how things changed where it went from applying to all these jobs to people calling you and asking if you're interested in their job.
Yeah.
And it changes, right? And there was times like, and I'm not saying that I was handed jobs, but it was like, I wasn't even looking for jobs. It's funny how when you're not looking for jobs, they fall in your lap. But when you're going all out and sending resumes, that should tell you something.
Do you think that focus led to the creation of the tier system? By being so focused on where you were, your brain was able to focus on innovating in the strength and conditioning field?
Actually, the tier system was done before I was still chasing. I created the tier system to the betterment of the athletes that I was asked to work with at Boise State. I was unofficially, I always say the credit of the tier system goes to June Darty, the women's basketball coach. Her husband, Mike, was the lead assistant. Jill Stevens was a top assistant. She had played at Stanford, and then our trainer for the basketball team, Tammy Pasco, was the main hub of that staff. But June had come from Stanford back in the early 90s when Tara Vanderveer, who they just won the title this year, but in the early 90s, Stanford basketball was it. It wasn't UConn, it wasn't Tennessee, it was Stanford. And then Tennessee rolled, and then UConn took over. And she had worked there as an assistant before she got the Boise State job. And at that point in time, strength and conditioning for all sports was still in a growth mindset. No one really understood what to do, I think, with Olympic sports when it came to strength and conditioning. So a lot of schools, because at that point in time, the staff was so limited, you'd have 17 or 18 sports and have a head strength coach and a GA, and that's it. And I was the GA at the time. So what was happening is you'd just get an Olympic sport would just get the old football program. And again, as we know now, there's really little relevance in talking about sport-specific strength training because we're general specialists and we're building these plans because most, especially strength power sports, you're going to see a lot of similarities in a programming. But there are some unique things that can be chosen when you really look at certain things, especially with women's anatomical builds. You may want to spend more time with some single leg work that work the structure around the knee joint,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But she had said, I'm tired of, and I walk in and I'm 300 and something pounds, just finished playing a year out, 2 years out, powerlifting, ex-football player. And she's like, here we go again. Right.
More of the same. Yeah.
Yeah. And she said out loud, I'm tired of getting the old football programs. Whoop, 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 whoop. So I didn't, I get it. I get it. And at this point in time, I didn't know where strength and conditioning was going to go as far as what I call the sport specific strength coach in college and college athletics. I just knew I loved the weight room and I could care less who I worked with. And she had some merit. If you saw the old 4-day split, or you see a 4-day split football program, it could, and you're a women's basketball coach, you'd be like, what are we doing here? Right.
Right. Yeah.
And so for me, the truth of the matter was I trained 3 days a week in college because our strength coach was an HIT guy. But
I remember that.
But because the football coaches were kind of dictating some of the programming that was going on, we were this, whatever it was, a hodgepodge of everything else. But what I did is I studied the game, and I would tell anybody, regardless of what you're doing as a programmer, you have to study all of it. Like, don't say, oh man, hit sucks or one set to failure sucks. Did you study it? Do you know do you know why they applied it the way they did? Don't say don't say Louis stuff's bullcrap, or, training for skinny bastards by DeFranco's bullcrap. There's merit to all programming.
Agree.
There is. So, but you got to know it. Like, and that's the one thing that with the tier system, when you worked for me, you had to learn the tier system. You had to apply the tier system. But the methods around how I taught the staff was not for them to leave when they ran their own program, hypnotized and dictated that this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And if you don't do it, you're a clown. It was, you got to build your own plans. You got to build your own ownerships. And if there's some principles you take from this, great. If you don't use it, that's not my job preparing you to be a leader. My job for you preparing you to be a leader was to make the right choices for you. And whether that's tier system or not. And again, there's several of my coaches, I don't think they're using full-fledged tier system, but I think a lot of the concepts of what you learn from me in those settings, there's certain things you can pass on. So
for sure,
the tier system was created on the premise of there's something better out there, and we're chasing something that not necessarily is in agreement with athletic-based strength training.
Yeah.
Doing Olympic lifts first. Why? Well, you got to do fast first. Who says? Weightlifters. I don't train weightlifters, right? You got to squat, bench, and dead. Why? Because powerlifters. I don't train powerlifters. And for a long time, I didn't program deadlifts into my program because it was called too slow, and it wasn't and people said there was no value in deadlifting with sports, but yet everybody was doing power cleans.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you kind of start dissecting stuff and you're like, wait a minute. And that's
kind of like your whole point of, I don't want to digress too far, but like when you started talking about intermixed periodization, it was like, that's what it is. Like, that's what it is.
That's
like,
what we're all doing
that one way or another.
Yeah. Don't tell me we're not, that everybody who believes in what they're doing. Yeah. We're not, everybody's doing intermixed periodization, whether 100%. They want to say it or loud. Yeah. And it's funny you say that, Andy, because on that presentation in this day of courses, I've taken those. I'm in the very first process of taking those 5 DVDs and creating that into a course.
That's dope. Yeah, so that'd be really valuable.
I just was looking at it again, and because you were there.
Yeah.
It's broken up in a way that it could be a really solid, like 5-hour course where you can get some CEUs and really establish yourself. And then since I have that already on tape, that'll be easy to timeline stuff and then write the questions. But the big one I'm working on that I think is going to be a game changer for people who believe in percentage-based training is my interpretations of Prilipin's chart
Oh yeah.
and how to design athletic-based strength training programs. Because Prilipin gets a bad name because what people don't understand is Prilipin is not a hypertrophy program. You don't use Prilipin's chart to build lean mass. You build Prilipin's chart to build an explosive component of
Power.
maximum concentric acceleration.
There you
So
go.
for the power lifters who kind of knock Prilipin, for athletes, I think it's ideal. More sets, less reps, more capability to mimic the multiple bouts of high intensity exercise. And I'm talking about intensity of effort, explosiveness that you're seeing on the court by using Prilipin. But that's kind of a little nugget on
Yeah, well, if anybody watching this has not seen how you've kind of expanded Prilipins, it's pretty cool. It took me a while to even figure out what the heck you were doing. I remember you were presenting at some event. I was like, I took a picture of it, got it. I didn't want to ask you for it. I was trying to figure it out. But I think that'll be a really, really valuable product as a whole.
And that's when I would, part of the course would be, I don't know how we're going to do it yet. You get the chart. Like, that's the thing, man. When people see my Prilipin charts, they're like,
yeah, it's different.
That's Prilipin. Yeah, it's athletic-based Prilipin.
Yeah.
And so it's like an evolution of thought is what can you do to enhance your athletes?
Yeah.
And are you doing right by them by regurgitating programming?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that some people, you don't always got to recreate the wheel. You want to try to tighten that bolt that's never going to tighten, right? You always want to try. How can you mimic what's the net? But the truth is, in the end of the day, if you write out an intermixed periodization plan for strength, and you have this long-term, what I call a modified long-term athletic development for the types of athletes we use on a quadrennial type plans, like you have the capability in the private sector for a traditional long-term K through 12 and beyond.
Yeah, we can keep them in the ecosystem that long.
But most of us are in this modified 4-year quadrennial Olympic cycle. You're gonna introduce them as they come in as freshmen, and then it's freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and it's over. It's about a 4.5-year window, possibly a 5 if you're in high school and you can get them in that 8th grade introductory block 0. But I just met with Winston-Salem Forsyth County School District, and I got acquired, and now we're looking at like they've got their outline, right, of what's the physical indicator, the physical education indicators they want at this age, and goes up. And now the question is, how can block 0 or that concept, that's how we talk about it now. I talk about block. People ask about when you're going to do the template or when you're going to write a book on block 0. I don't know if I ever will. I think it'll be more about courses and presentation stuff or camps.
Yeah.
We're going to we're going to looking to do like a national block 0 academy and do camps. That's another part of this big monster goal of mine. But I cannot wrap my head, like the tier system is a system.
Yep.
It's specific. There's specifics to this principle-based system. There's exceptions, but there's principles. To me, as I keep watching what's going on by a lot of very smart coaches in the high school levels, at the college levels, and they're utilizing the term block 0, which maybe I should have trademarked. And
yeah, you should have.
But I give for free. I give for free.
There you go. From the heart.
I'm a giver because it's helping kids, right?
That's right.
And it's keeping kids safer. We're being able to protect them better, and because we've introduced this concept of, you can slow cook. You don't need to be in a rush. I think we've done a better job of long-term planning for those kids, and you're not seeing the guys who are doing it are less injured than the guys who aren't.
That's exactly right.
And so the concepts of that, it's like, every exercise, I don't think there's a bad exercise. There's bad application.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the allowable corrosive technique that has no relevance to why you're doing something. To do a program or to do a movement because, in your case, Alabama or Auburn does them, but
Yep.
you're dealing with your daughter is
It's crazy.
or even a local high school, right? Well, we've got to clean because Alabama and Auburn are going to have our guys clean, but you don't know how to teach to clean and you've never been exposed to it. Believe me, they could care less if you clean it.
That's right.
So that's what you got to understand is you want to look at things that you can acquire a taste to that has relevance to what you believe in, and then you've got to develop it into your own package. And that's not to say like, again, there's a lot of people that do tier system, and when I talk to them, it's tier system based.
Yeah.
Because once you break the integrity, the true model of the tier system, it now becomes a hybrid.
Yeah.
Or
you're talking about the rotation of exercise categories.
Yeah. Like for example, and I don't mean this in no disrespect.
Yeah.
But like if you do like with track and field, we always did TLT. But if you're doing a TLU 3 days a week, that's more conducive to the weightlifting belief system. You want to, and it is a tier system, right? If you say I'm doing the tier system, but I do TLU 3 days a week.
You're saying without the LUT and then
yes,
the
without
TUL.
the true, and I know why you're doing it because you still believe, or they still believe that the Olympic lift has to come first. And it's funny because at one point, I don't know if we ever discussed it when we had the long tier system, but at one point in my evolution, I had a tier 1A that was a 3-set total body Olympic movement before you got into it. And then I just dumped it because it was like, come on, you're appeasing the crowd, but you're not appeasing yourself.
Yeah. So hold on, before you even go on, this is one thing that I wanted to highlight on, because I think we need more of this in the strength and conditioning industry. And I had a chance to talk to Mike Boyle about how he's pushed back in this area, but I can't think of anybody that has challenged the traditional programming thinking the way the tier system has. And what I want to know is, like, what gave you the courage to do that? And I know there's a story about like the rebuttal when they kind of shit on your article. Like I know that story, but what gave you the courage? You're like, nah, man, I'm standing on this. This is what I believe in, and I'm gonna hang my hat on that, because there are not a lot of people in our industry who are willing to do that.
Yeah. And again, I challenged the next group to who's going to be the next innovator. Like, it's not like, again, I'm not going to punish myself for creating the tier system. I'm not going to punish myself for going out there and telling you the block zero concept and what it is. That I'm not going to do that. I mean, it's not fair to me, right? And again, I don't want to, if this is arrogant, then it's arrogant. I'm going to sit here. I'm not asking you to pat me on the back, but I did it. And I had a lot of help making it better. I mean, I can rattle. I mean, Marco and I really started the block zero program. It was called intensification at Arizona State. And the block system, I can't even remember when I flipped it to the whole block persona. It might have been when I got my kids rolling, my own kids. And, then Ben Hilger took it over. And then we were rolling. And then when I got to, and again, we were keeping it pretty much into just the weight room stuff, right? Just the strength part. And then when I got to Louisville, man, Coach Dermody, because I always turned it over to the top assistant, block zero, because it was just good ownership. And then we got to Coach Dermody over at Louisville. Now we started integrating field work. Now we had something rolling. And that's when the camp stuff, that's when I was like, okay, now we got some stuff we can do, a whole bunch of stuff. And when you look at middle school kids, before they get a external load in their hands, you can pretty much, without any equipment, do an entire block zero strength and movement session on a field or in a gym and never leave. And as I've learned through the PE processes of what's it, 1 day a week for 30 minutes in our area, and then they get 2 20-minute recesses.
Yep.
And then
Which is like walking the track. They don't even do it.
Yeah, and then in the block system, it's A-B schedule. So sometimes you got them 3 days a week, and that's upper school. But most elementary school, it's 1 day a week for 30. And like I ask my granddaughter all the time, okay, what was your activity day? Because it's either art, computers, PE, and two other things. And and again, I remember during Zoom when she was still living with me, she'd go into my home gym and do her PE out in the gym, because just to kind of make like she was in the gym, not all the time. But she'd ask me, "Can I go to the gym and do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome."
Oh yeah.
So I just think that really what it was, again, it was a challenge, and we were so used to getting our templates from other sports. You got your standard 4-day lift week back in those days for football was really a 4-day powerlifting split, so to speak. And you threw in a hang clean and a power clean, and then or a snatch and a jerk. And it all kind of fit in throughout, but the 4-day premise was really based off of an upper and lower body split. And then you filtered in these 4 Olympic lifts or their variations. I think it used to go, and I could be wrong, but I think most people would do the clean and the hang clean on the lower body days, because that was the day you would squat and front squat. And then they would snatch and jerk on the upper body days, because that was the day you would bench and incline. But was funny, and again, I think Coach Thompson did a nice job of making sure we overhead pressed, but a lot of teams are doing snatches and jerks with no pure strength movement in the overhead game, and wondering why the labral tears and the shoulder dislocations were occurring during that era of athletic, of strength and conditioning at the college level. So for me, it really was, hey, I got to help these athletes out. And I believed in the high intensity model of total body, or what I call whole body training, because it made sense to me, because that's what athletics is all about. There is no like delineation of events. Like in powerlifting, you can split it up because the events are split up. Like benching's upper body. Now you got to build a base with your legs, and anybody who tells you you're not using your legs in a powerlifting setup is wrong. And there's a huge amount of upper body stabilization and posture alignment for the deadlift and squat. So there is a mixture, but really there are 3 different components that you can break up. Same, Olympic lifting is a little different, because those are total body movements that are in a synergistic patterning that is very fluid. But the truth is, and again, this is a generalist talking, there's very little eccentric component in those lifts. It's pretty much, because remember, you catch in a full catch, you've taken away for the eccentric component of the squat. There is no lowering of the bar when you finish. It's a dump. So those exercises have a lot of merit for concentric bar speed and acceleration, but they don't give you the eccentric component. And that's where some of the principles of bodybuilding come in. So it was a mixture of, okay, how do I take all these disciplines, all this methodology from each of the disciplines, all the exercises needed to create this unique perspective of taking 3 of the strength sports that we're all using the template for. Like a lot of teams literally who are Olympic based use the United States weightlifting model. They use the same types of ways of volumes, intensities. And again, anything structured is better than unstructured. But at some point, training a sport with a specific sport, you're going to lose something, because each of the disciplines of strength, bodybuilding, powerlifting, and Olympic lifting, if you just break it down in the general terms, have 3 of the major components you need to be a high quality athlete coming out of a weight room. So the thought was based off of, okay, how do I build a whole body session, HIT looking, without doing it on specific body parts. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if any of your listeners understand, but HIT is based off of whole body, one set to momentary muscular failure or technique breakdown. And generally, depending on the lift, you could probably see a 20 rep leg press. And then most any other exercises, the goal was to reach momentary muscular failure between 12 and 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, depending on how specific a coach may be, your program would start, neck work. That's one thing about the HIT. They were always about neck. Before neck was neck.
Was a thing, huh?
Yeah. So like for me, a typical program for us would have been, we'd have went in the weight room and we would have started with our neck circuit. So we would have done a seated nautilus shrug for 12 to 15, 4-way neck. So forward flexion, flexion extension, lateral flexion. Then we would go to rear delt fly, the old rear delt machine that they had.
Yep.
And then we would finish. We had a manual resistance rotary neck. So you got put in, clank your head, and the coach would turn. So then we would have our neck would be done. Our neck, and that's how I built out my reinforcement package, is built off of that principle, because most people who are training the neck are forgetting it's a package.
Yeah.
That the package is what supports the head, not so much the neck, but what supports the head. Well, the neck muscles and the musculature of the neck, but then it goes into this like shield of traps.
The yoke.
Yeah, and then you have the posterior shoulder muscles like the rhomboids, etc., that all filter in what supports a good posture in the neck. But then, then you'd go into your leg series. And to be honest with you, some coaches would even get into where, I don't know how many people remember, Hammer Strength created a dorsiflexion machine.
I remember
small
the seated one with the
yes. So you would do dorsiflexion, or however it was worked out, but it usually would go, you'd start off with hamstring. So you'd go 15 hamstring, 20 leg press, 12 quad leg extension, heel raise, dorsiflexion. And then you knock that out. And then you'd go nautilus pullover, compound chest, compound shoulder, bicep, tricep.
Yeah.
Done.
I hope people listening to this.
Maybe the hip and back. If you had a hip and back, that would have got thrown in to the lower body. So there's a lot of people who are successful. Dan Riley and the Washington Redskins won 3 Super Bowls like that. At one point in time, the NFL was more than 3/4 HIT based training in that late 80s to early 90 period. And then it became a hybrid. And now there's a mix and match of everything that goes on in the NFL because of the amount of training that's done outside the facility. There's so much more interaction with the athletes because they're so well versed in what they're doing. So you look at this stuff and you just ask what makes sense.
Yep.
And to me, training like an Olympic lifter for a women's basketball player was just as crazy as the basketball coach saying, I'm tired of the old football programs. So it just became a really, again, I don't know if it was any like buck the system type of deal, but I just came to the proponent of what am I asked to do? So from a football standpoint is, and I don't know if it's back then it was really, we've got to be explosive in the fourth quarter. Well, if I keep doing what people consider fast exercises early in my programming, how am I ever going to know if we're going to be explosive in the fourth quarter if I'm not training certain things under fatigue?
Yeah, that was my selling point on the tier system. I was like, that makes too much sense. That just makes too much sense.
Yeah. And I could have cared. I mean, again, I was upset again. If Rich Gray doesn't call Harvey Newton and that article doesn't get published, no one knows the tier system. That's fine. Because then I don't write the book. But I know this, all my athletes would have known it and I'd still be a successful coach because regardless of how I'm known globally, my athletes knew I had their best interests at heart because my program didn't look like a lifting program.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't, and again, I think I could train a beginning power lifter off the tier system? Yes, it'll fit, but a weightlifter, not so much.
Yeah.
But a beginning power lifter, easy. But then at that point in time, they're going to get to that threshold where, okay, now we got to go to this 4-day split,
Yeah.
or a 6-day, depending on how you want to do it. And then because of my expertise level and what I accomplished as a power lifter, at some point in that power lifter's journey, although I think I could get them to that point, I would have to be humble enough to realize that when they started clipping numbers in their hands or on their back that I had yet to achieve or had never achieved,
Yeah.
from the mental point, I've got to get them to people who understand what that feels like. Like I've had 650 is my best squat. So I could probably get that 650 to 700 guy because I understand that mindset. But once they start going to that next level, I don't know what it's like. And I know what my mindset was to do 650 after years of chasing that specific goal. But like talking to guys like Dave Tate, Jim Wendler, and guys who've had 1,000 pounds on their back, Matt Wenning, 1,200 pounds on their back, that regardless of strength, that's a mindset.
For sure.
And then seeing guys now, regardless of bench shirts, putting 1,000 pounds in their hands.
Yeah.
I don't want to put 135 in my hand. You know what I'm saying? So that's when you have to be willing to self-criticize, right?
Yep.
Self-critique, be willing to say it out loud so that people understand it's okay to say you don't know everything. It's okay to make mistakes if you own them.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell coaches that, hey, I blew this, because they're expecting you to be an expert. And that a lot of times is why coaches don't usually like to just order strength coaches what to do, because their job, it's on them to wins and losses are on them, and we all sign up for wins and losses. So the whole thought of like what made me do it, I wasn't even worried about the back tone, because I was upset because when I got the reviews back and it said I was going to get peer reviewed, there was none of my peers were on that review board. I saw no coaches that were
coaches.
Yeah. So I wasn't getting reviewed by peers.
Yeah.
Getting reviewed by experts, because obviously everybody can be considered experts in some way, shape, or form, and educated people, right? PhDs, but even they can be blinded to what they're seeing. And that's why I always appreciated Harvey Newton for making me finish it, because he was a high level weightlifting coach. So if anybody was going to rip what I was doing, it's going to be a weightlifting coach. Yeah. Not so much a powerlifting coach, and remember, and again, I'm not bashing the NSCA, but once the NSCA started blowing up, it was dominated by weightlifting based coaches, and most of the science people were weightlifting background who got PhDs.
Sure.
So obviously I'm going to get crushed, right? You can't snatch after squat and incline. Who says? Who made those rules?
That's right.
Right.
For this sport.
Yeah. And to me, that's why I said there are no rules in athletic-based strength training. Why do you think you see as much variation as you see? Because the truth is, if you're incorporating all these principles, doesn't matter how you order it. And I'm telling you this as a guy who has a specific order, like don't break the order of this program.
Yeah. Right.
They're just not, because you're signing up for a bigger thing. You're one faction. And the truth is, your faction of strength training is not number one in their lives.
Yeah, very true.
Like I always say, like at the NFL level, it's family to me. Again, depending on who you are, it's either financial or football. Those can flip-flop, but it's going to go family. I shouldn't say, I would say based off of what I No, for most people, you have family, and then financial, football, and faith will all be depending on the type of person you are. Those three will change.
Yes. Yeah, they will.
But those four things are always ahead of lifting weights.
Especially in a good, like the guys in the NFL, and you can speak this better than me. A lot of those guys, they did not get there because of their weight room ability.
Oh,
Like most of these guys are some of the worst lifters I've ever seen in my life when they're in the pros. I mean, I got high school kids that technique wise smoke a lot of these guys. You know, they don't want to be weightlifters. They want to be great football players. They want to look good doing it. They
yeah.
want to feel confident that they've built the capacity needed to play at a high level. But they don't want to be weight room guys. And I made a lot of
they
mistakes.
they shouldn't be. And I learned that, yeah. I learned that coaching Steve Smith in college. Like he really woke me up by saying, you know what? He's right. He's not on a lifting scholarship.
Yeah.
And you learn, okay, how do you create something that those types of athletes will at least come into the place?
Yeah.
The two greatest college football players ever coached were not the best weight room guys, and they're going to go to the Hall of Fame, Terrell Suggs and Steve Smith. But they were the best practice players. Steve Smith was by far the best college practice player I ever coached.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome.
Just ridiculous. But so I had to learn that, right? Like, hey man, how, and then when the scouts would come in, you know, I love Steve. Like me and him had a funny relationship for a guy who wasn't a weight room guy. And at that time, like I'm still I'm a meathead strength coach. Like,
yeah.
But I just it couldn't resonate with me like some strength coaches would and dog the guy for not being a weight room guy.
Yeah.
When I saw that this dude is legitimately working harder than anybody at practice, and the weights just ain't part of his deal. Now, I think he had as he grew into the NFL, he found out what he needed to be, what I learned with all our guys. They know what they need. So that's why I tell people, if you watch me coach in the NFL, you'd be hard to evaluate that style versus how I worked the floor in college.
Very different environments.
Because you're coaching in college, you're managing in the NFL. Now you're cleaning up technique and I had a coach tell me one of my first 2 years that he was shocked that I was coaching technique. And he'd been in the league for 20 plus years. And I almost was like, well, isn't that what you do every day? Like, isn't that supposed to be what I'm doing? You know, like we were actually coaching. And so, because they do want to be coached, like, but they also know, like some guys know they're not weight room guys. So they don't want to be, you know, you gotta massage them a little different. You got to give them things that are maybe not tier system based. Like, I called it off the grid. We had a lot of guys off the grid, especially the older you get. Now we had other guys like, you know, and I know I can say his name out loud because he was just one of those guys. But then you had guys like Greg Olson who never wanted, I'm not training like that. That means I'm old. You know, like he never wanted to buck the system.
Yeah.
He was on a mission to prove he's never getting old. And there were some of those guys, but then there was some other, but it was my job in the NFL to be the voice of reason. Like at a certain point, hey, I get you don't want to train like you're an old guy, but we just don't need to go to that space.
That place. Yeah. Yeah.
So like I had Julius Peppers, and I think Pep would be okay with me bringing his name up. And I had him his last 2 years. And when I first met him, I go, Pep, you've been in this. Is there anything you don't do, you don't want to do, you can't do? He goes, I'll do whatever you want. And I'm like, well, this guy's a Hall of Famer. He's fourth in the NFL's all-time sacks, and he's saying, I'll do whatever you want. Okay, well, depending on who you are, I think a younger me is going to train this dude like an idiot.
Yeah.
But the smarter me was like, this dude's 17 years old, 17 years in the league, greatest player ever, one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And he's willing to do whatever I say. Okay, I'm going to take care of this dude. So when we would have our cycles, and this is something for you can listen to for veteran, like even you now, when Reggie Raglins of the world come back through and you're programming, you may have this plan. So we would do climbing sets to our work sets, kind of some Prilipin stuff.
Yep.
We had it all colored, like each column and each load was colored. So you go, let's just say it was like yellow, blue, orange, red with the top sets. So
Yep.
depending on the exercise, I would just say, hey, Pep, go to blue and stay there the rest of the way. Like he never went to red except for some upper body stuff. Because the upper body, they're always cool with. Lower body and all that other stuff.
When they need that pitch sharp.
It's a different deal. And so those are things you learn. And again, so going all the way back, I don't know if there was anything that said what made me say this is it. Now, after Harvey had made me rewrite it, and Rich stayed adamant to get it done, and it got published.
Yeah.
And the response was, kind of like, wow, man, people like they're interested. That's when I was like, okay, you start seeing yourself something that you didn't know, like you didn't expect to be, right?
Yeah.
That's a way, if I'm saying it right, like you kind of like, is this going to be something that's going to be a game changer?
Yes.
And I think, so that was in remember, the tier system was created in 1992.
Golly.
By the time I left Boise State, that thing was a machine.
Yeah.
And when I went to Utah, now it was an ultimate challenge because I replaced two very good strength coaches before me.
Mm-hmm.
Traditional 4-day splits.
Yep.
And here I come in rolling with this. First time I had a legitimate paid staff that wasn't GA. Like again, my last year at Boise State, my top assistant was the captain of my powerlifting club, a senior athletic training major that I didn't want to hire. I didn't want to hire anybody. So I was like, Mike Knutsen's name. He's a cop in Denver, a cop somewhere. And I said, Mike, I'm going to make you the assistant. Can you get it done? And then the rest of my assistants were work study on our powerlifting team. So, and before that, all I had was GAs and work study.
Yeah.
Never had a full-time week, up until the time I left, the only full-time assistant, and really that it wasn't, was me my third year there, because the basketball coach and gymnastics coach fought to keep me, and they created this $13,000 position. And back then that was big for being an assistant.
Big time. Yeah.
I just got my master's. Whoop, 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 whoop. But when I went to Utah, I had paid staff. Like they had assistants making money. So now the challenge, right? Now this isn't the Pied Pipers down at Boise State where if House says do this, that's the gold. Now you got people who went to school for this.
Yeah, gotta lead them.
And now you gotta win them over before the players, right?
Yeah.
But the players were like, they didn't get it either at first because they're used to 4-day split. So they're thinking, here comes Wednesday, I'm done. No, man, we squat on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And back then, because I was still linear, kind of messing with linear, combining some of the Louis, didn't really get full-fledged Prilipin at this point or volume accumulation where I am now. But back then, that first 4-week phase of a 12-week summer cycle, you were doing sets of 12s in the squat, 6 sets of 12, descending sets. So that's old school stuff, right?
Yep.
And now I wouldn't do it that way because I would build the volumes in at other ancillary work. But that's what we were doing. So you have to come in now and you got to sell it again. You got to sell it to your staff. You got to sell it to the kids, and then you got to sell it to the football staff.
Yes.
And believe me, that first month there was a lot of questioning going on.
Yep. Yep.
A lot of questioning. And that's when I really had the confidence to say the tier, because at this point in time too, I was still playing the game. The tier system had 4 days. It had the session A, the auxiliary day, where you did all your supplemental, because it was prime mover based. So you did all your back work and all your other stuff. And it didn't come down to Kyle Whittingham, who's now the head coach at Utah, been there since I left. in various roles, but has done a tremendous job leading them from the Mountain West to the Pac-12 and winning a lot of games. He was the D coordinator who oversaw the weight room. And he comes down after a testing period.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget it, because we're in the office. We were just chatting it up. I can't remember if it was spring, might have been spring ball, because we had just finished testing. And he came down and he was pretty sharp because he always exercised. So he was always on the ellipticals while guys were lifting. And he goes, "Hey, we lift 3 days a week, don't we?" And I'm saying to myself, "Oh, here we go."
Here it goes. Yeah.
I said, "Well, we lift 4 days, the 4th day is," he goes, "But really, we lift 3 days a week." And I said, "Yeah, coach, we lift 3 days a week." He goes, "Man, I knew you could do that." When I heard him say, "Man, I knew you could do it," session A was out. Like,
yeah.
That just disappeared, like automatically was gone.
Was there a little bump of influence from that? The auxiliary days? Like, I remember back and I'm forgetting the book 20 years ago, but I remember that was one thing that I had never been exposed to before, because he had these auxiliary days in between his prime mover days, or as a second session later on in the day. And
yeah, I think because back then, I can't remember where it came from, but it was important because you said it. Back in that era, it was like your primary movers and your secondary movers, and it was primary movers were they supposed to be the emphasis. And I think, again, that's why I think back in those days, you saw little things like shoulder issues, pec issues, because we were overemphasizing the push.
Movers, yeah.
And we weren't even doing much back.
Yeah.
And it took a while to, again, all this stuff started to flow into what it is now. So you spent that day on all your back and your shoulder and stuff because you didn't want to write it in to the main workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And, people call them like pump days now.
Yeah.
But then as
pro days.
Yeah. Or you learn through Louis Simmons, now it's extra workouts.
Yeah.
Or what we called in football blitz packages, and
feeders.
Fast breaks in basketball, and aces in tennis. We had all these cool names for depending on what team it was, but then but for the most part, football used them the most in blitzes because we could fit in that stuff throughout the week. But yeah, so when you talk about the confidence maybe that you're looking for, right? The reassurance that, okay, this is a guy who I hold in a high regard. He's our defensive coordinator. He knows training. And he's saying, "I knew you could." That was it. Like, it was over. And when I took the Arizona State job the next year, that's when we started really bringing in blitz programs and some other things. And then as we move forward through that, from about 1996 is when I realized we were training freshmen wrong. But it took me all the way till 2003, where, again, confidence, working with the right coach, proving yourself to a lot. That's when we went all in and said, with the football team first, we got to train freshmen different, and we're not doing this right. Yeah. And even then, it was a freshman program and everybody else. And that's when it really got into, wait, let's do this. Then it became freshman program, a second level, and then an upper level. And then we started doing it where we wound up when I think when it was all said and done for football, it went block 0, block 1, everybody was on a standardized program. Block 2, everybody was pretty much, regardless of position, on a standardized program, because those were the 2 big years of max effort strength. That was kind of the priority. And then once they got into block 3, that's when we went outside the box and front 7. And then it really got into more of that pure, like, conjugated max effort rotations every month. But the first 2 years were pretty much based off of continuing that pattern of maximal strength is a priority. Everything else will build off that. And then power, influence, and explosiveness and those types of things kind of transfer over in 3 and 4. And that would be with all sports, because the model of the quadrennial plan is based off of an Olympic cycle. And really, what's the most important year of the Olympic cycle? The last year. Same thing with us. What's the most important part of a person's career? Their senior year. Now, in some sports, it's not like that.
Yeah.
Coach college basketball and it's one and done, and you got a Zion Williamson. I would probably take a Steve Smith or an approach.
Yep.
I've only got this guy for 1 year. If he's coming from what I think he is, especially a basketball player who plays basketball year round in high school, what has he really done in a weight room? I'm going to that program is not going to look
super
like,
basic.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to look like what the freshman basketball player who's redshirtings look like.
Yep.
This dude is out. And really the second semester, if he told me, hey, I'm not lifting at all because I'm going to the league in 6 months, let's face it. If the coach doesn't back you, guy probably didn't lift it. And I don't care if anyone says, I've been in college. I know how the game's played. I've heard about all these great college programs who guys work their butts off and it's a hard working program and they show up to the NFL and you're like, yep, it doesn't matter what school you're at. If you're a better player than most, somebody's figured out you're not doing it like they say you're doing it. But then you see some of these other guys and you're like, okay, that dude's just a flat out worker.
Yeah.
But I've seen it time and time again. So I think the biggest thing I could say on that is everybody needs a sounding board, right? And I think what really helped me was when I got a staff, when Jason Velkamp was my assistant at Utah and Mark Uyama was just coming up. Cheyenne was just coming up. Jason's a really sharp guy. He's at Western Kentucky now. He was a good guy for me to build my confidence in the program because he asked the right questions.
Yeah.
His wife was a PT, so they asked the right questions. So that was always important. And then by the time I got to Arizona State and my guys had grown, they were growing with me, the conversations that we had to help exploit what we were doing just made the system better, and better to a point now where when I do launch the next product, it's going to be a textbook and it's only going to be for a mentorship and qualifications and coaching styles. And it's going to be more of a unique experience to some of the things we've discussed than here's the new book. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to sell it unless it's part of the whole experience in the relationship building of a weekend. And and it's like a badge of honor, say maybe that if you have the textbook, then you are part of something special.
Yeah, you earn that. And I mean, I'm really looking forward to all that. I mean, myself, my team, my staff, anybody that's close to me will be encouraged to participate in that. And I think that's one of the things that's so unique about what you brought to this field is like you actually innovated and really created something. And there's not a lot of people that can say that. And having an opportunity to learn from you the way I have is something that I hope other people get an opportunity to do as well. I want to highlight a couple things that I think you've said that I kind of want to leave people with. That last point, I'm glad you said sounding board, because I had that locked in the back of my head. And it's kind of what you've become for me. And I think it's important for everybody in our industry to develop that like all-star team that can be your sounding board, whether that's on your staff or other practitioners. Like you have to have that to confirm your own biases, to question your own biases. The second thing that comes to mind is, that lesson that you said is like, be where your feet are. This is the best job you got right now. I'm not saying don't have goals and don't think out there, but don't future pace so much because you might miss some opportunities to innovate and grow. And if I reflect on my career, there was times where I was focused on other things that I absolutely missed opportunity in front of me. So I think there's a really, really good lesson there. The other thing that I want to bring up is this. And this is what I want to leave this one, because I think this is a really important thing for me to kind of leave my imprint on the strength and conditioning field regarding is one of the things I respect the most about you, Coach, and I know your athletes respect about you, is your dedication in the weight room. There are a lot of strength coaches these days that don't live this shit, and I know you know it. They don't work out. They don't lift. Do I think you need to kill it all the time? No. But for God's sake, you better have some years under your belt of doing that. Or I'm not so sure athletes respect theory as much as they respect the juice, when they see it live.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny because I had an article and there's a picture of me, and the quote is, if a strength coach don't lift weights, I ain't listening to that strength coach.
There you go.
And again, you're right. I just think that in our profession, right? How do you not? And again, like you said, do you even have to just some type of physical fitness?
Yes.
I wouldn't say I'm great at it, but I am where I am today because of the weight room. It's not because of talent. I'm not getting a football scholarship on talent alone. Like I played on teams in high school that I was not the best player on the team. In some cases, I know my junior year, I would probably have ranked 10 guys ahead of me.
Yeah.
But the combination of work, the combination of good grades, and the combination of my dad putting a foot up my ass to keep my grades up, and the fact that I had a great coach, my head coach and my position coach were way ahead of their time, put me in a position to be good enough as a package to get a scholarship. And if I don't get that scholarship, I'm picking up garbage with my dad. And so it's there's like a stories, right? Where like, how do you become this? Here's how it rolls. And that's part of what got you here. Like, and that's why I keep saying, I'm fortunate that I was able to have the mindset to think differently. Like I always say, I think like this. Too many strength coaches think like this. And I think that's what's put us in trouble. Like as far as losing our voice at the bigger levels, letting too many people dictate how we're supposed to do a job. And we've done a poor job of, because we're like, oh, we just got to keep our head down and, stay on the ground floor and just keep working.
Right.
And there's something to be said about that. Because in the end, really, regardless, I know what my players think of me, most of them.
That's right.
100%. And I'm okay with that. But I know the majority would say that we did it the right way. And we tried to be as fair as we could. I think we created an environment of success wherever I was. And again, the part of the lifting part was part of our success. Like, oh man, like they, like even now in this day and age of social media, you see me doing, whether it's got hundreds of weights on it or not, you see me doing this crazy exercise and guys come in and go, damn, House. I said, don't worry, you're never going to do that. He goes, that, and they're like, well, I wouldn't do it if you told me to do it.
Anyway. Do it. Yeah.
But I mean, it's just like one of those things. It's where, and I know there was a couple of times when I was still training in the mornings where guys would come in and they'd see me training. And they're like, well, man, I don't really want to train, but here's this old fool in here slinging it. I just got to come in here and get it done. And I just also know that for me personally, especially at this time of training, the way I train will influence the things that would occur if I ever were to get back into a team setting or even just training small groups of athletes, because everything I do for myself, I always look at where's the value in the programming. Like when I put together these little medleys that could be fit like a tier 3, or when I'm coming up with different types of rotations, I've told people now the way I block my programming, off the 7R principles, that I got 13 R's.
Oh, you got 13 now, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't use them all, but my workouts are broken up into thirds, and most of my strength work, again, because I have the time to do it, are 90-minute blocks.
Yep.
So you have the first third is pre-activity prep. The second third is the priority. And then the last third is your ancillary finisher work. But through this beginning phase, the way it's written and the way it's structured, that's probably, again, depending on what I do, it could be 30 to 40 minutes. That's adult fitness to me. Like when I look at how I'm doing it,
MB, yeah.
and I'm like, this is like, and I already have a title for it if I ever go into this situation, but it's like, I would kill it with that programming for 40-year-olds and up.
Yeah.
Because it has a lot of the components that I did with the professionals, and everybody, oh man, this is some of the things that pros do.
So
That's why I said, so I have this name, this concept. I don't know if I'll ever put it to use, but I do know that it would be successful, because if one thing we've learned from CrossFit is most people at this point don't want to go on a cardio piece for an hour anymore. Those days are long gone. Very few people want to go to the gym and they want, that's why you see these like Fit 45s or these things that Mark Wahlberg's into, Orange Theory, and these types of CrossFit high intensity interval programming that's been successful. That's why I'm like, mine would be more traditional model, because it wouldn't be all high, but it'd be very scalable to fit this 45-minute or less block. And it would be very much a good sales pitch would be, having the word pro in the title.
Oh yeah.
Especially to the male athlete. And then,
I got
then
ideas.
it's all a build.
I got ideas on that, Coach. I got ideas.
Oh, you got adult fitness. You got adult fitness.
I got ideas, and I'm 42, so I got ideas. And I got abs. I at 42 right now, I got abs. I could be the cover model.
Oh, I know, man. I told you, you do your stories with shirts off, and I do my stories. I told this is my kind of my running joke in this age of COVID, where man, it was just crazy, right? Like what's happened the last 2 years. So buddy asked how I'm doing, and I said I got COVID 20, and he goes, "You got COVID?" I said, "Well, I got COVID 20." And they're like, "Well, what the hell's COVID 20?" I said, "It's a new strand. We just found out." I went to my doctors. We were doing this big research deal. We tracing all this back, and we traced it all the way back down to the freshman 15 family. And people are like, "Oh, you fucked up."
And they're tied together.
Yeah, like, you had this freshman 15, but now you got COVID 20. But you don't want COVID 30. That's what I'm trying to keep myself.
That's the bad one right there.
Yeah. COVID 30 could lead to some serious issues. But here's what happens too. When you train like you start getting more scars. So I added my first upper body scar this year training. And let me tell you, I've had 8 knee surgeries. I've blown 3 discs in my back, numerous micro tears of the pecs. I probably need slap tears in both shoulders, tore my teres, missing a rack. Imagine a train coach missing a rack.
Yikes.
But this deal here is by far the most frustrating, and like you talk about like disappointing you at times, like trying to find the motivation. It's not even so much the nerve part, because I think they said it. That's just that I can tell. It's the fact that it's so tight and I still can't get like full flexion, and it's sore through here. I told people, man, I've come back from everything. This one here is going to be the life of me. I mean, it's like when at some point in time, it just got to stop being sore. Like, and again, I busted out like old school. I've got like the legit glass bottle DMSO that I pour into a sponge. So I'm pulling it all. I'm pulling everything out. I'm not afraid.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, Coach, thank you for your time. It means a lot. I hope everybody got a lot out of this. There's a lot of lessons like I talked about too, but I'm going to put one more thing out there. Guys, know your history. Like, know your history about this industry. That's one thing Coach Ken's impressed into me. And it's given me a great deal of confidence that I know the history of my craft. And I think that's important for all of us. I'll be posting this on YouTube, and it's going to go up in my group. Coach, if you got anything coming up that people should know about, I know you've got a lot of things in the works. Is anything around the corner?
Actually, and again, I don't know how, like I said, high school coaches, I'll be doing a pre-con on Block 0 a week from Friday at the
That's in Minnesota, right?
In Minnesota. Yep. At Wynetta High School.
Yeah.
Right outside of Minneapolis. I'm doing a keynote speaking at the NSCA's national conference in Orlando. So if anybody's there, just come and find me and let me know you're part of Andy's tribe. I know I've met a few people through text and stuff that Andy's
Yeah.
hooked me up with that we were able to help out at Dynamic. So we've been able to get involved with some of you guys through Andy. Again, thanks. And besides that, like I said, I've got some other things that are getting close to breaking that I think is going to be a very cool for a lot of people, Andy
Yeah.
included, once we get rolling, because I just think that when you get to a point where you can continue to give, it's fun to be able to be in a position now where you can take some of the things you're involved with and get other people involved. When you're in an organizational setting or a university setting, it's hard to make moves.
Indeed.
I mean,
Indeed.
it's just is. You're limited. You got to watch how you trade off your own name versus a company's name.
Mhm.
And in this day and age, we've learned that multiple streams of revenue, branding, it's funny because it used to be called self-promotion and that always sounded arrogance. But
And now
now
it's
it's
branding.
called create your brand and everybody's cool with that. It's you're just
Language.
it's coach speak, right?
Yeah.
You're just a blowhard. That's all you are. You're
That's
blowhard.
it. That's it.
But again, I appreciate everybody's time. If I can ever do anything, you can just reach out through Andy. And if I can help, I sure will.
Thanks, Coach. You are the man. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video. And I'm going to stop the video.